Hello, everyone. Today's team training for the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment concerns modeling in ArcGIS. And this is part of our prototype model flowchart here where we're exploring how to use the GIS software and to do data processing. And this video is a continuation of two related videos using the same data sets, and that would be geoprocessing basics and analyzing spatial data. So if you haven't watched those, you might be able to get the gist of this video just fine, but you might not really understand the data too well. So you might want to view those before viewing this one. Okay, so with that warning, I'm going to change my share here to ArcMap. And ArcMap, I've got the Arc Toolbox window open already, and I have several layers of data from the previous exercises loaded. A nests layer that has the location of goshawk nests. There's 4 of those. A streams F layer that has the streams, and then the lease layer, which is an area that up in Alaska that we're interested in for lumbering purposes and trying to determine how much the lumber on the lease is worth. So this is, if you watch the previous videos, you should be pretty familiar with this. We're going to basically do the exact same thing that we did in the analyzing spatial data video, except we're going to automate the process using ArcGIS's Model Builder. And Model Builder is a powerful tool. It's akin to a visual programming language or a tool for making macros or something like that. And it's really great when you have to process data repeatedly. So maybe you're bringing in different data sets, or something changes, that you have to recalculate something, and that might take many steps in GIS. And this way you can set up a process to automate that. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the model building process the best I can. And to begin with, I'm just going to open my little catalog, Arc catalog window over here. And the first thing that we need to do is to build a model, you're basically building a geoprocessing toolbox. And I'm going down here in my catalog down to the toolboxes, and the system toolboxes here. But you see there's also a folder called My Toolboxes, and this is where you can create your own. And that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to right-click on it, and you can see there's not many options right now. New, I'm going to do a toolbox. There's also a Python toolbox, which we're not going to cover in this video, but it's a scripting toolbox. So ArcGIS has that capability as well. Anyway, click on the toolbox here, and so it makes a generic toolbox that has nothing in it. If I hit the little plus sign, there's nothing in it, right? But if I right-click on it and I hit properties, it will bring up the model properties. And so what I'm going to do here is mainly, I just want to change the name of it. And so I'm going to call this Harvest Profitability. And notice that when you name a toolbox, it has to be all one word. You can't have spaces or special characters. And it has this label tool underneath. And so in that's how it will appear on your in the toolbox. And you can have spaces in that one. Okay, so just be aware of that. You can't have a tool that has doesn't have, that has spaces in it. Okay, I'm going to hit OK here. And so now you can see that toolbox has been put under my toolboxes. Okay, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to that toolbox. We're going to right click, and now we're going to go down to new once again, and we're going to make a model. Okay, so you can make a tool set or you can make a model. And in this case, we're interested in making a model. And it opens up the model builder window, which is sort of our visual programming environment. What we want to do here is, if you go up to the model menu, is go to model properties, and we got to give this one a name too, right? So I'm going to call it harvest profits. So it's very close to the other one, which was harvest profitability, but I don't like to name them the same thing. And the same thing applies for the name and the label. I don't think that we got to click anything else here. I think this should be okay. So we'll hit OK. And then I'm going to hit the little save icon over here to make sure that we have saved that. And then I close that window down and then go back to our catalog. And there you go. So I have a model here, and I have the toolbox and I have a model. Okay. And so now what I want to do is, when you got both the catalog and the toolbox window open, is I'm going to drag that toolbox over and put it in to the ARC toolbox, and it should add it there. There it is, harvest profitability, and it brought harvest profits model with it. Okay, so there, now we have it in the toolbox where we can use it. Okay, all right, so now I want to start building my model for analysis here. And so I double click on that, and you'll see that there's the tool has no parameters, right? So I right click on it, and then I'm going to hit edit so that we can start building it. So the first thing, if you remember from the previous lesson, is these nests and the streams are important to us because we have to provide a buffer around them where we're not going to harvest any lumber. So the first thing we need to do is calculate those buffers, okay? And so we're going to build this up. We have to to build up the model, we have to use tools that are in the ARC toolbox. And so the first thing that I need to do is get the buffer tool. And if you remember, that's under analysis, and it's under proximity, okay? And so I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to drag it over to my model. And that you can see it has the buffer tool and then an output unspecified output buffer class. And you'll notice, I'm sorry, feature class, and you'll notice that these are white, okay? And that means that there has been no input data added. So, there's no way for us to process anything yet. So what I'm going to do here is the first buffer I'm going to make is the one around the goshawk nest. So I'm going to drag this layer over here, nest F from the table of contents, and you can see that you can drag it right in and you drop it. And there's something in nest F, and that's why it's already colored blue, okay? Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to drop it onto the buffer, and that will automatically bring up this dialog box. And I would say this is my input feature. Okay, and usually takes a minute for that. It's thinking. See, okay, so you got to be patient. There, now it's linked to buffer and it's colored, right? Which means it's got something, and there's something that buffer can do, but we can't run buffer yet because we haven't specified the parameters for it. Okay, so if you double click it, it will bring up the buffer tool, and this looks just like if you'd open it in ARC toolbox, right? So it's not going to be anything different, and you have to do the same specifications. So the first things is that we need to do is we need to specify a location for our new output feature class and give it a name. And I think for this one, we'll give it a name. We'll call it nests F buffer. And you want to, I'm sort of checking here. That's why I kind of hesitated. I want to make sure I don't name it something I've already used, right? So I'm putting this into my TimeGIS geodatabase. There we go. And then it wants to know what sort of buffer do you want? Well, we're going to use a linear unit of 800 meters. So I'm just going to click in there and put 800. Okay. And wants to know if I want to dissolve it or anything, and I'm just going to say no. We'll just leave this as none right now. Okay, and we hit OK. All right, and then now you see that the buffer tool and the NES-F buffer are colored in, and of course, instead of just saying generic output class, it says NES-F buffer. Okay, so at this point, we've got the first part of our tool ready to run. Okay, I'm going to right-click on NES-F buffer, and I'm going to say Add to Display. So what that's going to do is once I run this model, it's going to add that output to my table of contents. If you don't check that, it will save it in the geodatabase, and you can add it later on, right? And so with that, I'm gonna run the model, okay? And so this is just a piece of what we need to do. It's the first piece. I'm going to run it and see if it works. And it did work, and it added the buffers around. I got to close the run file, the run dialog box, and it added. You can see it added the buffers here around the goshawk's nest. It added them kind of a similar color, so I'm just going to change the color here so you can see them better. There you go. Right. So, that worked. One of the other things I'll point out, and you'll probably see it again as we move on to the next function. But when it runs this, a couple of things happen. First of all, you might have seen it buffer briefly turned red. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong. The system's just telling you, oh, I'm executing this tool, right? And so wait, it's doing this tool, and sometimes it, depending on the data set and the tool, it can take a while. So that just flashed on the screen, but sometimes it takes longer. The other thing is after it runs, it put a drop shadow under the tool and the output, and so we don't need to run it again. And if we add functions to this model, which we are going to in a second. When you hit run, it won't run the previous functions again, right? Unless you tell it to run the entire model, okay? And so I just want to point that out because it's sort of a visual indication that you might not pick up if you're not paying attention, right? Okay, so now I'm going to move on, what I want to do here is we need to create a similar tool for the buffers around the streams. So again, I'm going to take my buffer tool out of Arc Toolbox and drop it in there. And once again, you can see here, it creates the tool and the output feature class. And then this time, I'm going to take Streams F. I'm going to drag that. I'm going to just drop it on buffer. And I'm going to say, yeah, input features. And that one went fast, right? And now I've got to double click on buffer 2, and again we're going to specify, okay, where are we going to put this thing, right? So we'll call this one Streams F buffer, and then we're not going to use linear units on this one. If you remember from the last time, we have a field called distance that specifies the buffer. So we're going to use that field. Okay. And I don't think we need to check anything else here. So we can just hit OK. And then see that turns color again. And then I want to show you here these tools up here for, helping you to arrange. So you can move all of these symbols in the flowchart around, but you can also, hit align and extents So this one's align, this one's or auto layout, I guess it calls it, and then full extent, and then it'll fit into your window. You can also make your window bigger, if you and we're going to need more space here. And I got my nest buffer here. I'm going to right click on it. It already has add to display checked, so that we need to do the same on streams buffer. Okay, now I think that we're good there. And now what we're going to do is we want to create a union of all the buffers. We want to get them all on one feature class. And so if you remember here, that tool, union tool, is under analysis tools, overlay union. So I'm going to drag that in. And so it's a different tool, but it's the exact same process. And what I'm going to do here is we want to bring streams F buffer and nest F buffer into union. So they're already in the model. So I'm not going to drag and drop them. I'm going to select this little connect tool here, which it has like two symbols and a wire in between. So if you ever done any visual programming, this is a very common thing to do. You set up your processes and your variables, and then you connect them together. And so you can see there's like a little line. So I'm going to click on streams F, and then you see it drags out an arrow, and then I'm going to click on the union input features. There you go. And then I'm going to do the same thing with nest F buffer. And there you go. And it gives this one a different color, and I think it's just displaying the last one that we identified, right? And now we've got to take your little select arrow again. Now we got to go through the same thing that we did setting up the buffers. So we double click on union, and you're going to see that the input features are listed here: streams F buffer and SF buffer, right? And so now we got to change the name, and I'm going to call it no cut area. I just want to make sure we haven't used that in the past, and we have, right? So I'm gonna change that for this purposes to F, no cut area. Okay, that should be all right. And we don't need to change any of the other attributes here. So we'll hit OK, or not attributes, but any of the specifications. There we go. All right. And that should set that up. And then I'm going to click here and say add to display. So now we've constructed our two buffers. You put them together in a union to create one file called the no cut area. And with that, we need to move on to the next stage, where we create a union between the no cut area and the stands layer. Okay, and so just moving over here for a second, if I turn the stands on layer, if you remember from the previous exercise, I'm going to turn the leases off here, and I'm going to turn off the streams. So what we have here is all the leases, right, within that stand, and there are a bunch of polygon shapes. So what we want to do is create a new union that has all of those, and it has all of the no cut area. So once again, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to get my union tool. I'm going to drag it in here, and then I've got to connect it as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag stands F over to it, drop it on there, input features, right? And you can see here, there we go. And then I've got to take my little connect tool, and I'm gonna connect no cut F no cut area also to that. And you can see I just dragged that arrow backwards. I can put it in any order, any direction I want. Input features, okay. Then I'm going to take my select tool, and then I'm going to double click on this union, and you can see stands F and F no cut area are in there. And the only thing I need to do is I need to change this. And let's see here. We've used, we call this F, no cut, and stands together. The main thing is that you have a unique name, for each feature class in the process that you're using, and we're not duplicating any names. All right, so now that's good. I'm going to hit my auto layout again and my extents, and so you can see here it makes it into a nice, neat flow chart for you. So at this point, you can see here I've run the NES F buffer, and what I'm going to do here is try running this and see what happens. This might take a little longer, so watch for the red as we go through. And remember, it shouldn't run this one, but it should run this one, and this one, and then it'll give them a drop arrow if it's successful here. So let's give it a try. Cross your fingers. There we go. There's the red. Yeah. There. So it looks like it worked just fine. And I can close that. I didn't get any error messages. It usually, if something goes wrong, it does. And again, you can see it put the little drop arrows under the processes. Now it doesn't put arrows or shadows under the blue tables. Those are just input tables. So it's not doing anything to those. It's just using those. And then you can see it added our different layers onto the map here. So first it created the streams buffer and put that on there. Then it combined the no-cut area, and then now we combine it all together, right? And so that creates a big, huge mess, if you remember from last time. But it's a useful mess. And what I'm going to do here, just to kind of illustrate that and refresh your memory from last time, I'm just going to zoom in here. I got a lot of windows open. I know that, but we got to keep them going. And I'm going to open up the properties for no cut and stands, and I'm going to label that feature using the FID F no cut area. There we go. All right. And so if you remember from last time, in the analyzing spatial data lesson, what we determined is if an area has a -1, that means it is not coincidental with any of the buffer areas. Okay, and so that can be harvested. But if you have a number, right, which these numbers correspond to the FIDs from the streams buffer and NES buffer attribute tables that we brought together in the union. If those show up with a number greater than 0, then that means that we can't harvest there. And that, of course, is what we're trying to look for, right? We want to know what can we harvest and what it's worth and what we cannot. All right. Okay, so now we've successfully created most of our model here. And so what we want to do is we want to make a new feature layer, right, that will allow us to calculate the value of the stands. And so I'm going to close down my analysis tools in Art Toolbox, and I'm going to go to data management. And what you're going to find here is, I know there are dozens of different feature classes here, right? I'm sorry, tools in the toolbox, and you'll never be able to keep them all straight, right? But what you'll find is almost everything you do already in ArcGIS is a toolbox that you can use. And so, like under layers and table views, we're going to make a new feature layer, right? So I can grab that and put that into the window here. And then I'm going to connect F no cuts and stands to that. It's an input feature, okay? And righto, okay. Then I got to double click it. So this is, oops. my bad. I got to hit the select tool first. Then I'm going to double click it. And so here you see this is what make feature layer tool looks like. And so it wants to know, okay, what kind of output layer do you want? And so, you know, let's just call this harvest F stands. And I put a gap in there. I don't want a gap in there. Okay. And then we have this optional expression tool. Okay, so let's select our little SQL. There's a little button over here, gets our query builder. Okay. And so what we're going to do here is we want our FID, F no cut area, and we want that equal to -1. Okay. So we're trying to select all of the areas that are harvestable, okay, that have a -1, just like I showed you in the labeling process. We hit OK there. And I think that we should be good there. So hit OK. Right. And I'm going to add to display. All right. Then I'm going to take from Arc Toolbox under Fields, Calculate Field, and that to the model. Okay. And then from that, we got to connect that. So we're going to connect from our harvest stands. Go to Calculate Field, click the table. It's thinking. Right. And then I got select again. I think I'm going to hit my arrange once it again. There we go. And I'm double click calculate field. And it wants a field name. So I'm going to call that again, you got to use a new field name. So I'm going to call that stand F value. Expression. So it needs an expression. And so what do we want? Well, we want the stand value is what we're going to calculate. Okay. And then I'm sorry. We're going to calculate the stand value. So that needs to go in the field name. And then the expression, got the wrong thing here on the expression. But the stand value, and the stand value is equal to the shape area times the value per meter, all that divided by 1 million, because these numbers are given in millions. Okay. And now we should have it. There we go. And we want to add harvest F stands. Okay. All right. And that looks good to me. I'm going to add to display. All right. Now, we've run all these previous tools, and now we're going to run make feature class and calculate field. And so once again, it will just pick up on the run where we left off. And I hit that, cross your fingers, and we'll see what happens. And it looks like it ran successfully. And I'm going to open up the attribute table of our harvest F stands. And I'm going to look at our stand value. I'm going to right click on that to get the statistics. And there you see that it has calculated that this value, the sum of the stand value is now a little over 1 billion, 1,052 million. And you know what that means is that we lost about $500 million worth of stand value by taking those buffers out. Okay. You might also notice that this number is a little bit different than what we calculated in the previous one. And this is often the case, and it is due to rounding techniques and the way maybe we've specified some of the field calculations. But at any rate, it worked successfully. So what we've done now is we've created a model. I'm going to close that down that we can use. And so I'm going to hit save here. So that model now is saved. And we can bring that into this ArcMap file or any other one that we want using the toolbox. And we've created an automated process that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 procedures. And of course, you can make these as large as you want. And we may use this tool when we're processing data for our project for the housing assessment. And so I think it's very useful. Now, one of the things you might have noticed is there at the very end, I went into the attribute table on harvest stands and got the statistics. And you can actually automate that process as well, but that requires writing a little Python script. And we're not going to cover that in this video, but it is also another thing that we can automate and add to this model. All right, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks.